Hey people of the VC, it's Andy Cloudy Mulder, and I've got my vinyl tag of 2018 for you. Okay, so vinyl tag 2018, 20 questions for you to probe into my musical knowledge on whatnot. Watched a few of these. I like the questions this year, maybe not as much as last year. I think there's a few this year that I have no answer for. So maybe this will be a shorter video, but there's a few I could probably ramble on about as well. So without further ado, let's jump in. Question one, first channel you watched or remember watching. That for me was either Greeno or Biosite one, I think it is, LJ's channel. Um, yeah, I was just surprised. I was looking around for just some information on setting up my turntable. I hadn't had it for long, and I came across people showing records and talking about them, and probably more surprising, the number of people that were actually watching them, the number of subscribers they had. And I guess I bummed around for about 2 or 3 months watching other people, and before I decided to jump in myself. So yeah, so Greeno or LJ, those are the ones who got me going on this and helped me discover the VC. Question two I have is the best VC recommendation. I have gone for Stereo Nasty, Nasty by Nature. There are many albums that I've probably bought as a result of people recommending on the VC. So I choose this one. So she looks like she's sitting down very comfortably there on my hand. So I'll leave her there. She seems happy enough. Um, so yeah, so this album, I have never heard of Stereo Nasty before. They're a band out of Ireland, and it was Rene Holsper Metal who showed this originally and said it was a great album. I listened to it on Bandcamp and picked up the CD originally, and then six to 8 months or so later, it came out on vinyl, and I had to go and grab a copy of that as well. But I chose this one because I remember then watching a video sometime later by Chris on the Vinyl Transmission channel, and he showed this, and he said that he picked it up after he saw my video recommending it, and I'd commented on it, or even it might have even been Rennie may have responded to Chris, something on the other, and he'd given me credit, and I in turn gave credit to Rennie, who also turned around then and said that someone else on the VC had recommended it to him. So I chose this one because it has had a chain of at least 4 people through recommendations that have picked it up on the VC. So that was quite cool. Question three, and forgive me if it looks like I'm looking over your shoulder. There is no one sitting behind you. I've just got the questions up on the screen in front of me. Um, Other hobbies. Um, I don't really have many, to be honest. Nothing really worth shouting about. I guess collecting music has become my main hobby these days, whether it be on vinyl or CD. I love, um, you guys know I love picking up 80s metal albums, and obviously with the luxury of having the internet these days, I love researching the bands and the albums and what was happening at the time those bands were recording it. So that's kind of become my hobby, I guess, more than just my pastime of listening to music. Other things I do, I've got 2 kids. I talked to my wife about this earlier. I'm not allowed to say that my kids are my hobby, because hobby is something that when you get bored with, you can give up or sell, and we're not allowed to do that. So yeah, I read, I watch movies, I like watching football, but my main hobby really is collecting music and learning about the music that I am collecting. Question four: why did I start collecting? Um, I'm going to talk about the why from 2014 when I started collecting records again. The first time around, I was a teenager. It was music. The music was on vinyl. I wasn't really collecting it. I was just buying music. But now I am collecting records. I'm going out specifically to buy records with the music that I like on it. So around 2014, I um, I was talking to a friend that was vinyl crazy, and he wanted. I mentioned I had a bunch of records from teenage years in the loft, metal records. He asked if I'd be interested in selling them, so I got them down. I started flicking through them, and rather than selling them, I ended up buying a record player. And 4 years later, here we am. I'm on YouTube talking about them. So that was why. So nostalgia, I guess, is the reason why. Do I play an instrument? Nope, not a musical bone in my body. Have I ever worked in a record store? Nope. Although I think I've kept a few afloat in the last couple of years, which is a good thing, I think, from my point of view. Favorite album from the year I was born? I don't have one. Um, Also, I'm not giving away the year I was born, am I? So yeah, so I just I was an 80s metal kid. I'm an 80s metal grown up. I like the new metals coming out, and I never really invested a lot of time in music from the 70s and before that. Until more recently, I've started getting, even things like bands like Black Sabbath, I guess. I'm only really appreciating them now. I just never had any time for them when I was growing up in the 80s. They were, to me, that was dad rock at the time, which is funny thinking about it now, thinking about the music that I listened to. So yeah, I don't really have one from the year I was born. Um, but I'll link it to the next question, which is a classic record I've never heard. Now, there are many, many records, classic records that I've never heard. I did a whole video one time of classic sort of heavy metal albums that I'd never heard. I'll probably link up to that somewhere. And I could, and I'll restrict this question to hard rock and heavy metal because I could pick any Beatles, any Rolling Stones albums, anything like that I've never heard. But let's go for something in the hard rock side and say link it back to the last question. Black Sabbath's Master of Reality, that came out in the year I was born. I've not heard that record yet. I think that'll probably change this year. Question 9, a guilty pleasure album. Well, I think you should listen to the music you love and never feel guilty for it. And if somebody takes the piss and makes you feel bad about listening to music that you're listening to, then more fool them. If you like it, you listen to it. If I had to choose something for this, so commercial pop radio is always on in our house. My wife and kids will listen to it all the time. If I'm listening to something else, they'll come in and ask to switch it over to the local commercial radio station. So I listen to a lot of modern pop music. I don't like most of it, but occasionally there are one or two tracks that come on that are really good, a little bit different, a little bit original. Maybe someone's got an interesting sounding voice, or it's just a good tune. And so I guess my guilty pleasure will be I sometimes like listening to the odd pop music song, but commercial radio will then play it and play it and play it and overplay it, and it will soon become irritating. So I don't actually buy any of that stuff, to be honest with you, but I can't really avoid listening to it. Question 10, strangest record I own. I don't really know what constitutes a strange record, so I have gone for this thing. This is a 10-inch mini album, I guess. Regular viewers to my channel will know that I'm a massive wedding present fan, and I used to buy everything by the wedding present, and they at one point did a 10-inch Ukrainian folk album. I think it was a collaboration with a band called the Ukrainians. It has that wedding presenty guitar-y feel to it, but it is Ukrainian folk music. I haven't played this for donkey's years. I'm happy I got it in my collection though, and I still pick up anything that I see from the wedding present that I don't already have. Okay, don't know if that's classed as strange though. It's strange when you compare it to the other stuff I've got. I like the old Trooper glass. It's not actually Trooper I'm drinking, but I got this in a commemorative tin with a bottle of Trooper with it at Christmas. Also got one of these as well, a Motorhead Road Crew one as well, which I've not opened yet. I digress. Where were we? Question 11. Picture disc. I forgot to get one out. So I'm just going to grab one from my magic shelf up here. Let's go for Wasp. And yeah, picture disc. This is Wasp, the Headless Children. I have very few picture discs. I'm not a big fan. And it's not, most people say they're not a big fan because they don't sound great. I'm not a big fan because I just think the packaging is crap. Oh, this is actually ridiculous. Look at this. On the back of this picture disc, they've printed the lyrics. How the hell are you supposed to learn the lyrics when the record's spinning round? I don't know. If picture discs came in proper cardboard sleeves, the proper printed cardboard sleeves, the lyric sheet, and even an inner what have you, I'd probably own more. You can't see the picture disc when it's on the shelf, so that's my gripe with picture discs. Is more the packaging than the actual picture discs themselves. Some of them are quite cool. So there's your picture disc. Best posthumous release. I have gone for. I don't have this on vinyl, only on CD. But I've gone for Joey Ramone. Don't Worry About Me. So this was his first solo album, and only solo album, unless he releases another posthumous one. It has 11 songs on it, and this is kind of Joey Ramone being allowed to sing about the things that he wanted to sing about, and it's really, really good. If you've not heard it, rest in peace, Joey Ramone, and the rest of the guys. Artist you impulsively collect. I'm not really sure. I'm not really sure how to take this question. Does this mean I go out and buy everything I can possibly find from them, multiple versions, what have you, or does it mean I buy things as soon as they come out? I'm not really sure, but you could probably take your pick between Iron Maiden, the Ramones, the Wedding Present, and the Manic Street Preachers. Those are the four bands I own the most albums from, whether on LP or CD or cassette, and not that any new Ramones stuff will come out, but the others I will pretty much buy the albums when they come out, but I will also look back for reissues and various things and singles and whatnot and pick up when I see them. But from impulse buys, really, it's more from the 80s metal genre. When I go out digging out, I'm particularly looking for 80s metal, and I will kind of pick that up impulsively, whatever it is. Best blind buy, question 14. That's easy. I'm sure I've mentioned this in other videos. Suicidal Tendencies first album. This is an 87 repress on Virgin Records. I've picked this one because this was my first ever blind buy. My sister was university in Bath. I went over to see her, had an hour to kill, found a record shop, saw the cover of this with all the shirts written on. Thought it looked great, so I bought it. Took it home, and it wasn't quite like anything I'd heard before. It wasn't my sort of traditional heavy metal sound, so it was my kind of introduction to the hardcore, I guess, punk crossover type bands, but really enjoyed it. Now a lot of what I buy is blind buys, as I say, sort of impulsively picking up 80s metal. Number 15, a band I was unaware of until recently, but wish I'd been into all along. That's easy. Last year I got really into Manowar. Um, wrote them off as a kind of a joke band back in the day, and picked up one album really cheaply last year, and thought it was just brilliant, brilliant, classic, true metal, for want of a better expression. And I now have 4 other albums, and Into Glory Ride on Music Foundations is now my holy grail. Finding a copy is hard enough, and it goes for a lot of money. So that may well be my ultimate pickup of 2018 if I can find a copy in decent condition. Number 16, best album cover. Now, if you're into heavy metal, that's a nearly impossible question. Heavy metal has, as a genre, has the best covers, mostly of a fantasy nature. So I've kind of narrowed it down and chosen an album cover by one of my favorite album artists, Rodney Matthews. Again, I could have picked up a load of them, but I picked On a Storyteller's Night. Big nostalgia for this album. I love this album. In the 80s, I only had it on a cassette version I'd copied off somebody else, but I remember even when I went to the record shops, even though I had it, I would pick it up and look at the cover, and I was quite big into reading fantasy novels when I was a teenager as well, and this kind of just evoked so many thoughts about what people were talking about around the table, and just looking, every time I looked at it, I'd see something new, some detail that some minute detail that I'd never seen before, that Rodney Matthews had put into this picture. So yeah, I would say this is probably one of my favorite Rodney Matthews covers today. Question 17. Musician I have met. I've never really met any musicians just out and about or bumped into them, or I've only ever met them at gigs. So in the last couple of years, I've been to a lot more gigs than I used to, and the sort of places, small venues I go to, a lot of the bands come out and they work the merch tables, and they'll have a chat, and if you're still around the end of the night, they'll have a beer with you. So nicest guys I met last year were probably Night Demon and Mithra. They both played on the same bill, and they were just really chatty after, so that was really cool. I met again after gigs, I met Richie Ramone and CJ Ramone last year, getting their autographs. That was pretty cool. I'm going to try and insert a clip of when I met Richie Ramone somewhere along here, and he's asking me why is my head so big, basically. I'll see if that fits in.
My head's massive.
What can I say? Question 18 is a record with sentimental value. I'm probably going to have to go with Live After Death. Spoken about this many times. It's the first metal album I ever had, and my sister bought it for me for Christmas. And to me, it is the best live album of all time. Possibly the best artwork as well. I didn't want to choose this one for 2 questions, but yeah, I had the T-shirt of this when I was a teenager as well, and I just loved it. Just perfect album, perfect live album. Question 19. Favorite album that nobody knows. Okay, I've mentioned this band already. It's not a band that gets mentioned on the VC. I watch a lot of people into heavy metal, so they wouldn't be showing this anyway. but I also watch a number of other people, and they show lots of different genres. And you just never hear anybody else talking about The Wedding Present, and certainly not this album, which is Sea Monsters. This is The Wedding Present's third album from 1991 on RCA Records. It was a change in sound for them for this one. It's a rougher, harsher sound than the earlier sort of jangly pop, bit more post-punk. And this was produced by Steve Albini, and yeah, it's just a thoroughly good album. If you're not familiar with The Wedding Present, then check this one out on YouTube. I don't think there's a whole rip of it there, but it's an alternative rock band, indie rock, a little bit grungy, a bit sort of distorted guitars. They're very difficult to put into a niche, which is why I think they never became massive. But I think they're excellent. I think they're better than anything that came out around the sort of grunge scene and the alternative rock scene at that time as well. So yeah, my opinion. So it can't be wrong. So we're up to the last question. Favorite album from a genre I don't know well. I struggled a bit on this one. I know the genres of the music I tend to listen to pretty well. I got into. I've listened to more sort of stoner doom in the last couple of years, and I would say that I don't know that genre too well. I'm enjoying discovering new bands through Bandcamp that fit into that category. I'm not well schooled in the whole stoner history, so quite often when people say, "Oh, you must like this band," I've not heard of them, even though they're considered to be a classic or the godfathers of that genre. But one album that I would choose if I could find it, yeah, my favorite one from the, I guess, the stoner genre is this one, and this is Valkyrie with Shadows. Valkyrie is a project featuring Pete Adams from Baroness, and it's certainly more sort of heavy and stonerish than Baroness, but yeah, great record. In fact, I think that might have been upside down when I showed it before. There we go. So this is this killer album. Only got 7 tracks on it, but really good, memorable songs and riffs on here. Excellent stuff. Okay, that's my 20 questions. And sorry it's been so long. If you're still with me, thank you. I hope you enjoyed that. And check out as many of the vinyl tag ones as you can. I'm certainly enjoying them too. So thanks again for watching. I'll see you again soon. Bye now.